submitting data. But before we move to that, I'm going to ask Larissa if she has any comments or questions that we need answering. And I'm going to go back to change my share here. I'm also going to ask all you guys a question. Emily, who was not able to be on the chat, asked what the best time to observe loons were, dusk or dawn, or how's the best place and when to survey them. So I thought I'd put that out there, and you guys can add it in the chat or in the Facebook comments, and we can summarize that later. Larissa, do we have any questions we need to answer so far?
Yeah, we have one here from Kat Graydon. You might have answered this already, but she says, I used Laurel Ironside's ID last year for the loon survey. Can this be added to my account?
Actually, no, it can't, Kat. The reason being that ID is associated with Laurel, I think you said. So you need to have your own ID and your own login. That doesn't mean you can't survey the exact same survey section and lake that she does. You just have to create those links yourself. The ID goes with the person, not with the the survey section, I should say. Now, if in the past, if this had been set up last year, Laurel could have set it up that where she logged in and she had told you to create your own account, and then she could have used that option to give you access to all her links. But I believe she's no longer surveying, so we can't move that way through. You're going to have to find the lake yourself this year, if it's not, since you didn't have the data collected under your name last year. Any other questions, Larissa?
One here, I did answer it, but best to get your opinion on it. RG Rush Cow. Okay. I tried a new password that was sent to me a few minutes ago, but it doesn't accept my email address or username, which I thought was RG Rush Cow.
Well, that's something we'll have to resolve. You send me an email, RD. Your username is something I can look up for you, or what you can do, you can use your email to try to access that user ID and find that out for yourself. But that's something, it's not really good time to open that up on the system right now because I'm getting into your private information and that's not fair to you. And any other questions, Larissa?
I think Kat has said that I guess for some reason she was told to use Laurel's ID. She could follow up with you later.
Yeah, just make your own ID, Kat. Laurel's is connected with her name, so it won't work unless it's specifically for the lake association. And connect yourself back to the lake that you were surveying. That's pretty much the only way it's going to work correctly, so that the data is connected to you in the future. Don't worry about. That doesn't mean if you want to access all the data on the lake later, that's not a problem. You can get all the data on that lake at some point if you do a data request. It just will associate that particular person's name with their work and your work with your name. Anything else, Larissa, or should I go over our poll?
No, we're good.
We're good?
Yep.
I don't know if you can see the poll, but I will go over the results with everybody. Is there a way to show this? Oh, share results. Let's try that, see if that works. So I'm hoping you guys can see the results. So it looks like the majority of our people have been surveying 1 to 5 years. We have a few that are 6 to 10 years. Now we have one person who started with the program before I did, and I know you're out there, Dieter, and I'm hoping Marlise is with you, and I'm so glad you're still with us, and welcome to the webinar. And I just told everybody who you were. I'm just so delighted to get the opportunity to work with this couple all the time. They've been with this program since its initiation. So kudos to those guys for sticking with us all this time. Other information we have here. Have you used nature count systems before? Most people have not. That's not surprising. It's more used with our regionalized programs. Not sure, fair enough. It looks like most people have not tried or have not succeeded with getting into the portal. Well, we had 10 are already submitting data, so we're all over the place. 10 are submitting data. The other half are either not there or halfway there. So hopefully the information I share here will help. Some of you may need to have a few emails back and forth later. And I just wanted to see what people thought about loons being in trouble. And again, it looks like that's all over the place. It's so hard to tell in Canada how our common loons are doing. We still see lots of them, even though we see with our data reproductive success is going down. Now, the catches with this species is so long-lived. A decrease in reproductive success may not be noticeable for a while. And we're just going to have to wait and see how this falls out. I am one who truly believe that we should try to keep our common birds common. So anything we can do to help this species and the other ones that use the same habitat they're in is in the best interest of Canadian lakes and Canadian ecology. So that's it. Before I move on to the next session, do you have any questions more that we have to deal with, Larissa? Or should we just move on?
You could just move on.
Okay. All right, so next we're going to talk about conducting your survey. And we've already gone over that you don't have to submit data, it's your choice. I want to make a point of mentioning that the protocol is very available. I'm going to put it back to my other page now. The protocol is very available, so just print it up and make sure you read it regularly, ideally at least once a year, because that will remind you all the little things that it's easy to forget. Now, I'm hoping that you're over and seeing the you're seeing the online data page again. And we're going to talk about how to use the data system. Now, the data system is set up in the process where it's a current year data is you can see only. Right now, you can't see past year's data, and we're hoping to have a mechanism at some time where you can get a hold of that data, but that's part of the next stage of the programming, so we're not there yet. But every year you need to create a form for the lake that you surveyed and to enter the data for that lake. So here's my system. And so when you sign in the first time, you want to use the lower drop down because you're creating a new form for the current year. And a big catch is the form has to be in the list. So I can choose any one of these 3 forms and click on it, and I will automatically open a new form for data to enter for 2020. Up at the top, you can open a pre-existing form that you've already started for this year and enter data in it. Now that's really handy because you don't have to enter all your data at once, especially if you do a lot of lakes. You can set up the form and enter some of the data and then return to it as you collect more data. So let's show how it works to set up a new form. So we want to survey McDonald Lake, and it automatically takes us to the form. Now, what about, let's go back to the home page here. What about, for example, we want to survey Moose Lake in Newfoundland, and it's not on our list. What do we do next? Well, if it's not on your creative form list or on your existing data form list, it means you have to add that lake to your drop down before you can enter data. So it's fairly easy to do. You start by adding a lake or section, and this takes you to a 3-page system where you can see 3 different options. You can add a new section, find an existing lake, or add a new lake. Now, step 1 is pretty much the easiest to understand. These are all lakes that you already work with, but other sections or associated with that lake. So you could go in and add a new section to Doodle Lake or whatever you have there. And when you add that section, let's go with Doodle there, and it automatically adds it to your drop down, and you can go in and choose it and create a new form. All right, so that's easy enough. We're not going to go beyond that right now with the form. So let's go back to the fact that we do want to survey Moose Lake. So the next step is, does Moose Lake exist in our existing database? This is really important. We have over 6,000 lakes and sections in the database, so we don't want to add ones we don't need. I should warn you that the lake number and section number does not work yet in the system. The programmer is aware of that and is working towards fixing it. But for here, you can choose the lake you want and enter it here. And some you could do something like Mud Lake and look for that, or Moose Lake and look for that. Now the catch with doing that is anytime you add extra words or potential spelling mistakes, it will get harder to find. So let's look for Moose Lake. Nothing is found. All right, so let's take off the moose. Let's take off this, the lake, and give another search. Again, nothing is found. And you're starting to wonder if there are lakes in Newfoundland in this list. Well, let's take a look there. So that doesn't work either. So let's try, if we just put an M, do we have any lakes in Newfoundland that start with M? And I think we've gotten ourselves into a, let's go to Ontario here. And here, we'll show you in Ontario that we have met the maximum number of lakes that we can pull up on the map. There's 250 lakes. So obviously you have to be something more clear than that. So let's try MAC. And that takes us to a smaller list. And you can go in and look at the different options and see what's there. Now, I have talked to the programmer. Right now, when you click on that, it doesn't bring up more detail. So, but you can click on that if that's what you want and add it. Or you can walk down and say you're looking for McDougall or McDonald Lake. You can walk down and find it in the list. Then you can say, okay, do I want this section or do I want a different section? So for McDonald here is a great example. If you click on this one, you survey entire lake. If you click on this one, you survey part. Now this is not a great choice because you don't know what 30% that is. But you know, for example, that you want to survey the northern half of McDonald Lake. So you would add a new section. And once again, it takes us here and it's in the drop down. We don't want the section 1. We know we don't like that. So we choose section 2 and voila, our form. When we come back and look at this, we still haven't found that Moose Lake in Newfoundland. So we know that it's not in our list. We know that it's not an existing link in the system. Like we tested that out. We'll try it once more and double check. And it doesn't exist. So the next one is add a lake. Now this particularly step is so simple, it's a little scary. So you just put in the name of the lake you want to add and you hit create new. And it automatically takes you back to the section and it's add that lake to the list. Now, the thing to remember is that you haven't entered any details yet. During your data entry process, when you use that lake, you will enter the data there in section 2.